My name is Paula Sinclair. I'm 33 years old. 3 weeks ago, my parents stood up at their 40th wedding anniversary dinner and announced to 30 guests, "We are taking the whole family to Maui next week for another celebration." Everyone clapped. My sister squealed with excitement. I smiled, already imagining palm trees and ocean breezes. My first real vacation in years. Then I made the mistake of asking a simple question. "What time is our flight?" My father looked at me like I had spoken a foreign language. My mother's smile tightened. And in front of every guest in that room, my dad said, "You do not need to know, Paula. You are not part of this trip. Someone has to stay behind and take care of the kids." 30 pairs of eyes, 30 witnesses to the moment my family told me I was not really family at all. But here's what they did not know. I had a secret, one I had been building for 3 years. And that night, I decided it was finally time to use it. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, to understand why I walked away from everything I knew, let me take you back to the beginning. The Sinclair family lives in a stone colonial house in the suburbs of Philadelphia. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, lawn trimmed to HOA perfection. The kind of house that screams, "We made it," to anyone driving by. My father, Walter Sinclair, retired 3 years ago from his position as a branch manager at a regional bank. My mother, Carol, has never worked a paid job in her life, but she will tell you she is busier than any CEO, chairing the church women's committee, organizing neighborhood fundraisers, maintaining what she calls our family's reputation. Then there's my sister, Renee, 3 years younger than me, married to Todd Fairbanks, a corporate attorney at a firm downtown whose name she drops into every conversation. They have 2 kids, a 5-year-old named Mason and a 3-year-old named Ivy, and a brand new Range Rover that always gets the prime spot in our parents' driveway. My Honda Civic, the one I have been driving for 10 years, gets parked on the street. "Paula, move your car," my mother would say whenever I visited. "Todd's bringing the Range Rover, and guests notice what is in the driveway first." I never questioned it. I just moved my car. That is the thing about being the invisible one in your family. You stop noticing all the small ways they have already decided you do not matter. The nicer parking spot, the better seat at the table, the way your mother introduces your sister to guests by her husband's job title. While you're just Paula, she helps out. I work as a part-time bookkeeper, mostly remote clients, flexible hours, modest income. Nothing impressive by Sinclair family standards. But I never told them about the other thing I do. The thing I started 3 years ago after my life fell apart in a different way, I never told them I had learned to see. Let me paint you a picture of what helping out looks like in the Sinclair family. Thanksgiving, I arrive at 6 a.m. to start the turkey. I set the table with my mother's Lenox china, the set I am not allowed to use, only to wash. I arrange the flowers, polish the silver, coordinate the timing of 7 side dishes. Renee arrives at noon in a cashmere sweater, kisses everyone hello, and sits down to be served. Christmas, same routine, plus wrapping all the presents my mother bought because her arthritis is acting up. Funny how her arthritis never stops her from playing bridge 3 times a week. Birthday parties for my niece and nephew. I am the entertainment coordinator, the cleanup crew, and the backup babysitter all in one. Last year, I spent 8 hours running Mason's dinosaur-themed party while Renee got a manicure because she needed a break. The one time I asked if maybe, just maybe, I could skip a family event because I had a deadline for a client, my mother's voice went cold. "Family comes first, Paula. We all make sacrifices. Except I am the only one who ever seems to make them." The breaking point comes in small moments. Like the year I got my Christmas gift, a kitchen apron that said "Best Aunt Ever" in glittery letters. Renee gave it to me. She smiled like she had done something thoughtful. I wore it. I wore it every single time I came over to cook, clean, and babysit. Do you want to know when I realized the truth? It hit me one random Tuesday evening while I was scrubbing my mother's Le Creuset pot after yet another family dinner. I could not remember the last time anyone had invited me somewhere without expecting me to work. 3 years ago, my life fell apart. I had been dating a man named Nathan for 4 years. We talked about marriage, about kids, about a future. Then one evening, he sat me down and said the words I will never forget. "I love you, Paula, but I do not think I am in love with you anymore. You are just there. You're always just there. Always just there. Like furniture. Like wallpaper." After he left, I wandered into a pawn shop downtown. I do not know why. Maybe I was looking for something to fill the hole. That is when I saw it. A used Nikon DSLR camera, well-maintained, tagged at $165. I bought it with money I should have saved. I told no one. That camera became my secret. I started photographing things most people ignore. Elderly women at bus stops, the tired faces of overnight janitors, the calloused hands of a street vendor, people who society looks right through, the same way my family looks right through me. I called the series The Overlooked Ones. I created an anonymous Instagram account, no face, no real name, just the photos. Over 3 years, I gathered 11,000 followers. People who saw what I saw. People who understood. I kept the camera wrapped in an old cashmere scarf at the back of my closet. It was the only thing I ever kept for myself. 3 weeks before my parents' anniversary party, I got an email that I almost deleted as spam. It was from a gallery in Cannon Beach, Oregon, Lantern Light Gallery, asking if I would be interested in discussing my work. I stared at that email for 20 minutes before I realized my hands were shaking, but I did not reply. Not yet, because good things did not happen to people like me. There's one person in my family who actually sees me. Her name is Marian, and she is my mother's younger sister. Aunt Marian is what my mother calls the family disappointment. She never married. She followed her passion for pottery instead of getting a real job. 20 years ago, she moved to Cannon Beach to open a small cafe with a pottery studio in the back. My mother has not forgiven her since. Marian threw away her potential. My mother likes to say, she could have had a good life, but she chose to play with clay. I have been calling Aunt Marian every Sunday night for 7 years. My mother does not know. It was Aunt Marian who first saw my photographs. I had sent her one, just one, testing the waters, and her response made me cry. "Paula, this is extraordinary. You have a gift." Nobody had ever called anything I did extraordinary. She was the one who encouraged me to keep shooting, to keep posting. And she was the one who, 3 weeks before my parents' anniversary, said something that changed everything. "Paula, I hope you do not mind, but I sent your Instagram link to someone. A gallery owner I know in Cannon Beach. His name is Desmond Cole. He is looking for emerging artists." I nearly dropped the phone. "Aunt Marian, that is the gallery that emailed me?" "I know, sweetheart. He told me he wants to talk to you about a solo exhibition." Silence. My heart pounding. "But that is real. That is an actual career thing." "Yes, it is." Her voice was gentle but firm. "And you deserve it. You do not need anyone's permission to pursue what you love. I learned that lesson late. You do not have to." That night, I replied to Desmond Cole's email. Now, let me bring you to the night that changed everything. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary, a milestone worthy of a party. According to my mother, which meant 30 guests, a catered menu that I would assist with to save money, and an evening of celebrating the Sinclair family's 4 decades of picture-perfect marriage. The preparation started a week before. I took 3 days off from my bookkeeping clients to help set up. I ordered flowers, white roses and peonies per my mother's specifications. I hand-wrote 60-place cards in the calligraphy she insisted upon. I coordinated with the caterer, pressed the tablecloths, polished the crystal glasses that had been a wedding gift 40 years ago. On the day of the party, I arrived at 7 a.m. I wore jeans and a t-shirt, because there was no point dressing up when I would be in the kitchen for the next 10 hours. By 6 p.m., the house looked perfect. Candles glowed on every surface. The dining table stretched across the living room, set for 30 with my mother's finest china. I had changed into a simple black dress. Nothing fancy, nothing that would draw attention. "Paula." My mother's voice caught me in the hallway. She looked me up and down, frowning. Is that what you're wearing? It is black. I thought it was appropriate. It is fine, I suppose. Just stay in the background. Today is about your father and me. I nodded. I always nodded. Guests began arriving at 7. The men in sports coats, the women in cocktail dresses, old colleagues, church friends, neighbors whose lawns were as immaculate as ours. 30 people who thought they knew the Sinclair family. None of them knew me at all, and in 3 hours, that would not matter anymore. Renee arrived at 7:15, perfectly timed for maximum impact. She swept through the front door in a red wrap dress, Diane von Furstenberg. She had announced to anyone who asked, with Todd behind her in a charcoal suit, and their 2 children dressed like catalog models. My mother rushed to embrace her, exclaiming over how beautiful she looked, how handsome Todd was, how precious the grandchildren were. I watched from the kitchen doorway, holding a tray of bruschetta. Everyone? You remember my daughter Renee and her husband Todd? My mother announced to the room. Todd's a partner at Whitmore and Associates. They just made him partner last year. We are so proud. Applause, smiles, congratulations. My mother never mentioned that I was the one who had done Todd's taxes for 3 years, free of charge, naturally. I circulated with appetizers, refilled wine glasses, answered questions from guests who did not recognize me. Are you with the catering company? One woman asked, reaching for a crab cake. Before I could answer, my mother appeared. Oh, that is Paula, my other daughter. She is helping out tonight. The woman smiled politely and turned away. My mother did not notice. She never noticed. At one point, Todd approached me with Ivy squirming in his arms and Mason tugging at his jacket. Hey, can you take them? Renee and I need to mingle. Not, would you mind? Not, thank you. Just, can you take them like passing off luggage? I took them. I fed them dinner in the kitchen. I wiped Ivy's face when she spilled juice on her dress. I told Mason 3 stories to keep him from running into the living room and disrupting the party. When I finally emerged, dessert was being served. I had not eaten anything all day. No one had thought to save me a plate. The announcement came at 900, right after my mother's tiramisu was served. My father stood up, tapping his champagne glass with a fork. The room fell silent. 30 faces turned toward him with expectant smiles. Carol and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. He began, his voice warm with rehearsed charm. 40 years of marriage, 4 decades of building this family, this life, this home. My mother beamed beside him. Renee reached for Todd's hand. I stood near the kitchen doorway, still holding a dirty dessert plate. And to celebrate this milestone, my father continued, we have a surprise announcement. He paused for effect. My mother's eyes sparkled. Next week, we are taking the whole family to Maui. 1 week at the Four Seasons, a second celebration. Just the Sinclairs. The room erupted in appreciative murmurs. How wonderful. What a gift. You 2 deserve it. Renee actually squealed. Dad, that is amazing. The kids are gonna love it. I felt something lift in my chest. The whole family. That meant me too. For once I would not be cooking, cleaning, or babysitting. I would actually be included. I stepped forward, allowing myself a small smile. That sounds incredible. What time is our flight? The question hung in the air. My father's expression shifted. He glanced at my mother. Something passed between them, a look I had seen 1,000 times, but never understood until that moment. Paula, he said slowly, you do not need to know the flight time. The room went quiet, not the comfortable silence of anticipation, but the tense quiet of something going wrong. I do not understand, I heard myself say. My father cleared his throat. Because you're not going. 30 pairs of eyes. That is how many people watched my father tell me I was not part of the family vacation. Someone needs to stay behind, my mother added, as if this were the most logical thing in the world. Renee and Todd need a real vacation. That means you will watch the children. But I started, honestly, my mother's tone sharpened. You do not have anything important to do. Renee works hard. She deserves a break. Renee works hard. Renee, who had not held a job since Mason was born. Renee, who had a nanny 3 days a week and still complained about being exhausted. It is just a week, Todd added, not even looking at me. The kids love you. I stood there in my plain black dress, holding a dirty plate, while 30 people watched me be dismissed from my own family. Some of them looked uncomfortable. Most of them just looked away. One woman, I did not know her name, leaned toward her husband and whispered something. He nodded. I caught the words, "Poor thing. She must be used to it by now." The champagne glass in my hand trembled. I set down the plate, set down the glass because I did not trust myself not to drop them. Of course, I heard myself say, "I understand." I smiled. The smile I had learned to wear after 33 years of being the one who helps out, the one who does not complain, the one who is always, always just there. But something inside me had finally cracked. Not broken, cracked like a fault line shifting before an earthquake. I excused myself to the kitchen. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. And for the first time in my life, I started making a different kind of plan. The party continued without me. Of course it did. I stayed in the kitchen mechanically washing dishes while laughter and conversation drifted in from the living room. At some point, Renee appeared, her red dress swishing against the doorframe. "Paula, do not be upset," she said, reaching for my arm. "You know how it is. Todd and I really need this time together. It has been so stressful lately with the kids. I kept washing. I understand. Besides, you are so good with Mason and Ivy. They will barely notice we are gone." I rinsed a champagne glass, set it in the drying rack, said nothing. Renee sighed the way she always does when she thinks I'm being difficult. "Look, it is just a week, and you do not have like a boyfriend or anything tying you down. Your schedule is flexible." Flexible. That word again. As if my time had no value because I chose how to spend it. "Todd made a list," she continued, pulling out her phone. "There's schedules, food allergies. Ivy cannot have strawberries, remember? And there is this new thing with Mason's ear. He might need drops. I will text you everything." She did not ask if I was willing. She just assumed. That is when Todd appeared, loosening his tie. "All sorted? Great. We are heading out early tomorrow to pack. Renee, your mother wants photos before we leave." They were gone before I could respond. Not that I would have, not that I ever did. But as I stood there alone in my mother's kitchen, staring at the list of instructions Renee had just texted me, a single thought crystallized in my mind. They do not see me as family. They see me as staff. And staff can resign. It was almost midnight when I found the emails. The last guests had finally left. My parents had gone to bed, exhausted from accepting 40 years' worth of congratulations. I was alone in the living room folding tablecloths when I realized I needed to send a file to a client whose deadline I had pushed back for this party. My laptop was at home. My mother's was on the kitchen counter. She will not mind, I told myself. She had borrowed my things 1,000 times without asking. I opened the laptop. Safari was already running. And there it was, my mother's Gmail, still logged in. I should have clicked away immediately. I should have minded my own business. But I saw my name in the subject line of a recent thread. Maui arrangements, Paula situation. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I knew I should not. I knew whatever I found would hurt. I clicked anyway. The thread was between my mother and Renee, starting a week before the party. "From Carol Sinclair to Renee Fairbanks, keep Paula here to watch the kids. She does not have anything important to do anyway. Todd was right, it is like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do." And Renee's reply, "Totally agree, Mom. She will probably feel useful for once. It is kind of sad, honestly, but at least it works out for us." I read those words 3 times to make sure I understood them. Free help. She should be grateful. Kind of sad. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I deleted my email from the sent folder and cleared the browser history. Then I sat in my mother's dark kitchen in the house where I had grown up and finally let myself understand exactly what I was to them. I drove home at 1 a.m. through empty streets. My apartment was small, a one-bedroom in a building that had not been updated since the 90s. Beige carpet, white walls, furniture I had bought secondhand. My mother had called it depressing the one time she visited, but it was mine, the only space where I could breathe. I sat in the darkness for a long time, staring at my phone. The email from Desmond Cole glowed on the screen, the one I had answered but never followed up on. We had exchanged a few messages about a potential meeting. He wanted to see my full portfolio in person. He was excited about the series. I could actually go. I picked up my phone and called the only person who would understand. Aunt Marion answered on the second ring, even though it was past midnight. Paula, what is wrong? I told her everything. The announcement, the humiliation, the emails. My voice cracked exactly once when I read aloud the words, "Free help." When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then Aunt Marion said something I will never forget. Paula, I have a spare room above the cafe. I need help with the morning shift anyway. And that gallery, it is 20 minutes from my place. Aunt Marion, I cannot just. Yes, you can. You can leave. You can choose yourself for once. The only person stopping you is you. I hung up at 2 a.m. By 6, I had started packing. 3 suitcases, my camera equipment, my laptop, the cashmere scarf that had wrapped my camera. I left behind the best Aunt ever apron. For the first time in 33 years, I was choosing myself. If you have made it this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between your family and yourself? Have you ever stood at a crossroads where staying meant losing who you were? Tell me in the comments. What would you do? Would you stay and endure it, or would you leave? And if this story matters to you, please hit that like button. Now let me tell you what happened when I told them I was leaving. 2 days before my family's Maui trip, I drove to my parents' house one last time. My mother was in the living room coordinating outfits for the vacation. Renee sat on the couch scrolling through resort reviews. Todd was somewhere upstairs, probably on a work call. My father was reading the paper in his armchair, the way he always did, present in body, absent in attention. I need to tell you something, I said from the doorway. My mother barely looked up. If it is about the children's schedule, Renee already sent it to you. It is not about that. I steadied my voice. I am not watching the kids. I will not be available. That got their attention. Renee's head snapped up. My mother's hands froze over a pile of sundresses. What do you mean, not available? My mother asked. I have a work opportunity in Oregon. I'm leaving tomorrow. Oregon? My father lowered his newspaper. What kind of work opportunity? It is professional, something I have been working toward. I did not owe them the details. I did not owe them anything. Renee's face twisted. Paula, you cannot be serious. I'm counting on you. We all planned around this. You planned around me without asking me, I said quietly. I am not canceling my life because you assumed I did not have one. The silence was deafening. Then my mother stood up, her voice cold as January. This is incredibly selfish, Paula. Renee needs your help. Family comes first. Family comes first, I repeated. Except when it comes to inviting me to Maui. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, Carol Sinclair had nothing to say. My father cleared his throat. If you leave, do not expect us to welcome you back with open arms. I understand, I said, and for the first time, I meant it. The next 24 hours were a masterclass in emotional manipulation. My mother called 6 times. Each voicemail was more dramatic than the last. You are tearing this family apart, Paula? I hope you can live with that. Your father is devastated. He barely ate dinner. Renee cried all evening. The children kept asking where Aunt Paula was going. Renee took a different approach, weaponized vulnerability. Paula, I do not understand why you are doing this to me. I am your sister. Do not you care about us at all? And then the text that nearly broke me. You're going to end up alone, you know. Just like Aunt Marion. Is that what you want? I stared at that message for a long time. Just like Aunt Marion, they meant it as an insult. They meant it to scare me. But Aunt Marion had her own business, her own art. her own life built on her own terms. Aunt Marion was happy. Maybe ending up like Aunt Marion was not a threat. Maybe it was a promise. I turned off my phone. The last thing I did before I left Philadelphia was walk through my empty apartment. 3 suitcases by the door, everything else would stay behind. The secondhand couch, the beige carpet, the life I had been living for everyone else. I taped my spare key to an envelope and slid it under my landlord's door. Month-to-month lease, paid through the end of January. Clean break. I loaded my car as the sun came up. My Honda Civic, 10 years old and reliable as ever, the same car my mother had been embarrassed by for years. It was going to carry me to a new life. I did not look back as I pulled away from the curb. The drive from Philadelphia to Cannon Beach takes about 42 hours if you push it. I did not push it. I took 5 days, stopping at roadside motels, eating at diners where nobody knew my name. Somewhere in Wyoming, I pulled over at a rest stop and just sat there watching the sunset paint the plains in shades of gold and pink. I photographed it. My first shot as a free woman. On the 3rd day, my phone buzzed with a text from Renee. I had turned it back on to check directions. Mom says, if you're not home when we get back from Maui, you are dead to her. I read it once, then I deleted it. She was already acting like I was dead anyway. At least now I would be alive somewhere else. On the 4th day, I called Aunt Marion from a gas station in Idaho. I'm about 8 hours out, I said. Your room is ready. Fresh sheets, ocean view, and Desmond wants to meet you tomorrow afternoon. If you're up for it. My stomach flipped. Tomorrow? That is so fast. Paula, her voice was warm, certain. You have been waiting 3 years for this. It is not fast. It is finally. When I crossed into Oregon, something shifted inside me. The Pacific appeared on my left, vast and endless in gray-green. I rolled down my window and breathed salt air for the first time in my life. I cried then, not from sadness, from relief, from the overwhelming sensation of possibility. At 7 p.m., on the 5th day, I pulled into the driveway of the Kiln House, Aunt Marion's Cafe and Pottery Studio in Cannon Beach. She was waiting on the porch, arms open.
Welcome home, she said, and for the first time in 33 years, somewhere actually felt like it.
Cannon Beach is the kind of place that does not feel real at first. Cottages with weathered cedar shingles, art galleries on every corner, ocean mist rolling through Sitka spruce. The whole town felt like a painting someone had dreamed into existence. Aunt Marion's Cafe sat on a quiet street 2 blocks from the beach. The Kiln House, hand-lettered sign, blue shutters, window boxes overflowing with beach grass. The Pottery Studio occupied the back half of the building, where she taught classes and sold her work to tourists who wandered in for coffee. My room was upstairs, small but bright, a bed with a white quilt, a desk by the window, and a view of the Pacific that made my chest ache with something I could not name. You will work the morning shift, Aunt Marion explained over dinner that first night. 6 to noon, after that, your time is yours. I do not know how to thank you for this. She waved her hand. Do not thank me. Just build something. That is payment enough. The next morning, I woke before dawn. I tied on an apron. Not the best aunt ever one I had left behind, just a simple canvas apron with the Kiln House embroidered in blue thread, and learned how to make pour-over coffee. Customers came and went. Locals who knew Marion by name, tourists charmed by the homemade scones. I took orders, wiped tables, chatted with strangers who had no idea I had run away from my entire life 5 days ago. By noon, I had made $34 in tips. I had smiled more than I had in months. And at 200, I had an appointment at Lantern Light Gallery. I showered, changed into the nicest dress I owned, and walked 3 blocks to meet the man who might change everything. Desmond Cole looked nothing like I expected. I had imagined someone intimidating, slicked back hair, designer suit, the kind of gallery owner who made artists feel small. Instead, the man who greeted me at Lantern Light Gallery was tall and weathered with silver hair and kind eyes. He wore a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, and smiled like we were already friends. Paula Sinclair, he said, shaking my hand. Marion has told me a lot about you, but the work speaks for itself. He led me through the gallery. White walls, natural light, photographs and paintings displayed with careful precision. This was a serious place, a place where art mattered. I have looked through your Instagram extensively, Desmond continued. The Overlooked On series is extraordinary. There's a truth in those images that most photographers spend decades trying to capture. I did not know what to say. I had never heard anyone describe my work that way. This one. He stopped in front of a large monitor displaying my portfolio. On screen was a photograph I had taken 2 years ago. An elderly woman waiting alone at a bus stop. Her face a map of lines and quiet dignity. This is the one that made me reach out. There is something in her eyes. Patience, maybe, or resignation. It is heartbreaking. She was waiting for a bus that came late, I said quietly. She had been standing there for 40 minutes. Nobody stopped to offer help. Desmond nodded slowly. You see people, Paula? Really see them. That is a gift. He turned to face me, and his next words landed like a key turning in a lock. I would like to offer you a solo exhibition, 15 pieces, opening in 6 weeks. We will cover printing, framing, and marketing. You keep 60% of all sales. I signed the contract on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting at Desmond's desk with sunlight streaming through the gallery windows. The document was simple. 15 photographs, opening night scheduled for late August. Lantern Light Gallery would handle production costs, printing, framing, installation, marketing materials. I would receive 60% of all sales revenue, with the gallery retaining 40% as commission. Standard terms, Desmond assured me. Fair terms. But as I read through the pages, my hands started to shake. Take your time, Desmond said gently. This is a big step. It was not the business terms that overwhelmed me. It was seeing my name printed in official type, artist Paula Sinclair, a legal document recognizing that my work had value, that I had value. I thought about all the times I had done my family's taxes without credit, all the parties I had organized without thanks, all the hours spent caring for children who would grow up never knowing how much I had given them. Not once had my name appeared on anything that celebrated my contribution. Until now. The exhibition title, Desmond said, pointing to a line near the bottom. I would like your approval. We are proposing The Overlooked Ones, Portraits of the Unseen. It is perfect, I whispered. I signed my name on the line. Desmond countersigned as witness. The document was notarized by his assistant, a young woman named Talia, who stamped the pages with official precision. When it was done, Desmond handed me my copy. Congratulations, Paula. You are officially a represented artist. I walked out of that gallery holding the contract against my chest. Physical proof that I was not nothing, that I had never been nothing. While I was building my new life in Oregon, my family was discovering what my absence actually meant. I did not witness these events firsthand, of course. I heard about them later, pieced together from voicemails and texts, and one very awkward phone call from my father. Apparently Maui was a disaster. Without me there to babysit, Renee and Todd could not enjoy a single adults-only dinner. Mason threw a tantrum on the beach because no one had remembered to pack his special sandcastle bucket, something I always remembered. Ivy developed an ear infection on day 3, and nobody could find the pediatrician's number because I had always been the one to keep track of medical information. My mother spent most of the trip complaining that the resort staff was not as attentive as expected. She called the concierge 3 times to complain about turned-down service. She sent back her Mai Tai twice. This is not relaxing at all, she reportedly said. Who planned this trip? My father wisely did not remind her that she had planned it herself. The texts started arriving on day 4. Paula, where are the kids' medication records? Paula, what is Mason's bedtime routine? He will not sleep. Paula, the restaurant does not have a kids' menu. What would they eat? I did not respond. I was too busy printing proofs at a photography lab in Portland, selecting frames, and meeting with a journalist from Coastal Living Northwest who wanted to interview me. But here's the thing about absence. It teaches people what they have been taking for granted. On day 6 of their Hawaiian vacation, Renee did something she had never done before. She searched my name on Google, And for the first time, she found something other than a blank page. 6 weeks later, I stood in the center of Lantern Light Gallery and could not quite believe it was real. 15 of my photographs hung on the walls, each one printed large and framed in simple black. The gallery glowed with soft light. A string quartet played in the corner. Desmond's idea, not mine. A bartender in a crisp white shirt poured champagne. 50 guests moved through the space. Local artists I had met through Aunt Marian, collectors Desmond had invited, a journalist from Coastal Living Northwest already taking notes, people who had come specifically to see my work. My work on gallery walls with price tags that made me dizzy. I wore a navy dress, simple, elegant, nothing that screamed for attention. My hair was down for once. I had even put on lipstick, something I rarely did. Aunt Marian appeared at my side, pressing a glass of champagne into my hand. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," I admitted. "What if nobody buys anything?" "Someone already has." She nodded toward a woman in pearls, examining the centerpiece of my exhibition, the bus stop photograph, the one that had caught Desmond's attention. A small red dot had appeared on the wall placard beside it. "That is Mrs. Ashworth. She owns half the art in Clatsop County. She just bought that piece for $2,800 for something I had created." "Paula," Desmond approached, grinning broadly. "I want to introduce you to someone from the magazine. They are considering you for next month's cover feature." Cover feature? Magazine cover. My face, my name, my story, all in print. I was halfway through that introduction when the gallery door opened and my world tilted on its axis. Renee and Todd walked in, still sunburned from Maui. They looked completely out of place. Renee wore a floral sundress more suited to a beach brunch than an art opening. Todd had his phone out, already frowning at something on the screen. They both scanned the room with expressions I knew well, the look my family wore whenever they encountered something outside their understanding. Then Renee saw me. "Paula." She rushed forward, arms outstretched like we were reuniting after a long separation she had been dreading. "Oh my God, we have been so worried about you." 50 guests turned to look. The string quartet faltered for half a beat before continuing. "Renee." I kept my voice calm. "This is unexpected." "We had to come." Her eyes were wide, earnest. "We flew in yesterday. Mom found your Instagram. She has been calling everyone trying to track you down." Todd appeared behind her, nodding at me like we were business associates. "Paula, nice place." "It is a gallery," I said. "My gallery opening." "Actually?" Renee blinked, taking in the photographs on the walls for the first time, taking in the guests, the champagne, the price tags. "You did all this?" Her voice was genuinely confused. "Since when do you do this?" "Since 3 years ago. You never asked what I did in my free time." Aunt Marian materialized at my elbow, a quiet wall of support across the room. Desmond was watching carefully, ready to intervene if needed. Renee leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Paula, I have news. I'm pregnant again. Number 3. And I really need you to come home. Todd's work is crazy right now. Mom's not helpful with the kids. I need you." There it was. Not an apology. Not congratulations on the exhibition. Just need. Always, always their need. The words hung in the air between us. I need you. How many times had I heard that phrase? How many times had I dropped everything, rearranged my life, made myself small enough to fit into the space they had carved out for me? "Renee," I said quietly, "I am in the middle of my opening night." I know, and this is lovely, really." She waved her hand at my life's work like it was a cute hobby. "But we can talk about that later. Right now, I need to know when you're coming back." "She is not coming back." Aunt Marian's voice cut through like a blade. "She lives here now." Todd stepped forward, irritation flickering across his face. "With all due respect, Marian, this is family business." "Family business?" Aunt Marian laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You mean the family that uninvited her from vacation and called her free help in emails she was not supposed to see?" Renee went pale. Around us, guests had stopped pretending not to listen. The journalist from Coastal Living Northwest, I noticed her pen moving rapidly across her notepad. That is not. We did not mean it like that. Renee stammered. How exactly did you mean it? This came from Mrs. Ashworth, the collector who had just purchased my photograph. She stood nearby, champagne in hand, watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. I'm sorry, Todd said tightly. Who are you? Someone who just paid $2,800 for that young woman's art. Mrs. Ashworth nodded toward my bus stop photograph. And someone who is very curious why her family seems to think she should abandon her career to be a babysitter. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Renee looked at me, desperation in her eyes. Paula, please, let us talk privately. Let me pause here for a second. If your family showed up at the most important night of your life, not to celebrate, but to drag you back to a life where you did not exist, what would you say? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. And if you want to hear what happened next, make sure you're subscribed so you do not miss anything. Now, let me tell you what I said. I did not retreat to a corner. For 33 years, I had made myself small. I had whispered, accommodated, disappeared. Not tonight. I stepped forward into the center of my own exhibition and spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. Renee, I understand that you are pregnant. Congratulations, genuinely. But I will not be coming back to Philadelphia to be your childcare. Paula, I am not finished. My voice did not waver. You can hire a nanny. You can hire two. Todd makes enough at Whitmore and Associates, and you have never had trouble spending money before. What you cannot do is hire me, because I was never paid. Renee's mouth opened, then closed. Around us, I could feel the gallery guests leaning in. This is not a hobby, I continued, gesturing to the walls. This is my work. I have been building this for 3 years, while everyone in our family assumed I had nothing important to do. And just so we are clear, I pointed to the photograph Mrs. Ashworth had purchased. That piece just sold for $2,800. Tonight, I have sold 4 pieces, totaling $7,600. My work has value. I have value. And I will not throw that away to go back to being free help silence. Absolute silence. Todd coughed uncomfortably. Renee's eyes were filling with tears. Real ones this time, I thought, not the performative kind. Then Desmond started to clap. Aunt Marion joined him. Mrs. Ashworth raised her champagne glass in a silent toast. One by one, the other guests followed. Applause rippled through the gallery. Not for my photographs, for me. For the moment, I finally stood up and said enough. I did not smile triumphantly. I did not gloat. I simply looked at my sister and said, I hope your pregnancy goes well. I truly do. Then I turned and walked away. The gallery door opened again 20 minutes later. I was in the middle of a conversation with the Coastal Living Northwest journalist when I saw them. My parents standing in the entrance like they had materialized from a nightmare. My mother wore her Burberry trench coat, the one she saved for important occasions. My father stood behind her in a blazer, looking uncomfortable and out of place. They scanned the room until their eyes found me. Carol Sinclair walked through my gallery like she owned it. Paula, her voice carried the same tone she had used when I was 8 and had tracked mud onto her clean floors. We need to talk. The journalist raised an eyebrow. I excused myself and moved to intercept my parents before they could cause more of a scene. You came all this way, I said evenly. Of course we did. You disappeared. You left your family when we needed you most. My mother's voice trembled with righteous indignation. And now I find you here playing artist, while your sister is pregnant and struggling. Renee is pregnant and wealthy, I corrected. She is not struggling. She is inconvenienced. Do not be cruel, Paula. This is not you. You are right. I took a breath. It is not the me you wanted, the me that you could count on to do whatever you asked. But that Paula was never seen, Mom. She was just used. My father cleared his throat. Paula, your mother is trying to say... I know what she is trying to say, Dad. I have heard it my whole life. Family comes first. Make sacrifices. Do not be selfish. I met his eyes. But I was not part of the family trip to Maui. Remember? So which is it? Am I family or not I? Neither of them had an answer. My mother recovered first. Maui was one trip, she said dismissively. You were blowing this out of proportion. Someone had to stay with the children. Someone, I repeated. Why me? Why always me? Because you have the time. You do not have a husband. You do not have children of your own. What else would you be doing? I had wondered if I would ever use those screenshots. Part of me had hoped I'd never have to. But standing there in my gallery, surrounded by my work and my witnesses, I realized that some truths need to be spoken aloud. I pulled out my phone. Let me read you something, I said, my voice steady. This is an email you sent to Renee before the anniversary party. My mother's face went white. Keep Paula here to watch the kids. She does not have anything important to do anyway. It is like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. The gallery had gone silent again. I could feel every eye on us. And Renee replied, I continued, she will probably feel useful for once. It is kind of sad. Renee, standing a few feet away, looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. Paula, my father started, where did you? It does not matter where I found it. What matters is that you wrote it. I lowered my phone. I'm not reading this to embarrass anyone. I'm reading it so you understand why I left. You did not see me as family. You saw me as staff. And staff has the right to quit. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time in my life, Carol Sinclair was speechless. The journalist from Coastal Living Northwest was still writing. It was Todd who broke first. This is ridiculous, he snapped, stepping forward. Paula, you are making a scene over nothing. So your family asked you to babysit. Big deal. That is what families do. Not everyone gets to run off and pretend to be an artist. Pretend. Mrs. Ashworth's voice cut through the room like ice. I just spent $2,800 on her work. I do not pay that kind of money for pretend. Todd turned, his corporate composure cracking. With respect, ma'am, you do not know this family. This is between us. Actually, I know exactly what I need to know. Mrs. Ashworth set down her champagne glass. I know that young woman has spent years photographing people society overlooks, and I know her own family treated her exactly the same way. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Guests were openly staring now. The kind of attention my mother had always craved, but not like this. Never like this. My mother tried to salvage the situation. This is a misunderstanding. Family jokes are being taken out of context. A joke? Another voice. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and a kind face. I had sold her a photograph earlier that evening. Telling your daughter she has nothing important to do. Calling her free help. What is funny about that? More murmurs, more judgment. The social capital my mother had spent decades accumulating was evaporating in real time. I think, Aunt Marian said gently, it might be time for you to leave. My mother's face flushed scarlet. My father took her arm. Renee was crying now, real humiliated tears. Todd stood frozen, finally understanding that his courtroom tactics meant nothing here. Paula, my mother said, her voice shaking, you will regret this. No, I said quietly, I really will not. My mother left first. She turned on her heel without another word, pulling my father behind her. The gallery door closed with a soft click that somehow echoed louder than a slam. Renee lingered, mascara smudged, arms wrapped around herself like a child caught misbehaving. Paula, her voice cracked. I did not know you felt this way. I thought you liked helping. No, you did not, I said, not unkindly. You did not think about it at all. None of you did. Todd put a hand on Renee's shoulder. For once, he said nothing. Maybe he had finally run out of arguments. I hope your pregnancy is healthy, I added. I hope your kids are happy, but I will not be their live-in aunt anymore. If you want to be in my life, it has to be different. It has to be equal. Renee nodded, tears streaming. I understand. I was not sure she did, but it was not my job to make her understand anymore. They left through the same door our parents had used. The gallery let out a collective breath. Aunt Marion appeared beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You okay?" "I think so." I let out a shaky laugh. "I just told off my entire family in public at my own art show." "You did. And you were magnificent." Desmond approached, pressing a fresh glass of champagne into my hand. "For what it is worth, I have been doing this for 20 years. Never seen an opening night quite like this one. Is that good or bad?" He smiled. "Let us just say everyone here is going to remember your name. And that, Paula Sinclair, is exactly what an artist needs." I looked around at my photographs, my gallery, my new life. For once, I did not feel invisible. By the time the gallery closed that night, I had sold 8 of 15 photographs. 8 pieces, $13,400 in total sales. $8,040 would go to me, 60%, just like the contract promised. Desmond handed me the printout of the evening's transactions as the last guest filtered out. Not bad for an opening night, especially one with unexpected family drama. I stared at the numbers. $8,040. More than I had made in 3 months of part-time bookkeeping work. "Mrs. Ashworth wants to commission a piece," Desmond continued. "She has a vacation home near Astoria. Wants you to photograph the coastline. A commission. Private collectors often work that way. She liked your eye. She wants to see what you do with her landscape." He handed me a business card. "Her assistant's contact. Call them next week." I tucked the card carefully into my clutch next to my copy of the gallery contract and the magazine interview notes. "Marla," the editor, Desmond added, said she has enough material for a feature. They are considering you for next month's cover. Cover of an actual magazine with my name and my face and my story. Aunt Marion helped me carry the unsold photographs back to my room above the cafe that night. 7 pieces still waiting for the right buyers, but 7 was better than 15. 7 meant people had seen value in what I created. I set the check on my desk, the first check I had ever received for my art, and photographed it. Not to post anywhere, just to remember. Payable to Paula Sinclair. $8,040? Proof. Physical proof that I was not nothing, that I had never been nothing at all. 2 months later, my new life had a rhythm. I woke at 5, watched the sun rise over the Pacific from my window, and opened the kiln house by 6. Morning shift until noon, pouring coffee, chatting with regulars, learning the names of locals who now recognized me as Marion's niece, the photographer. Afternoons belonged to my work. I had rented a small studio space 3 blocks from the cafe, just big enough for my editing equipment and a printing station. The gallery exhibition had closed, but Desmond had already scheduled another show for spring. This time, a series called Boundaries. Photographs of edges, thresholds, the spaces between belonging and being alone. It felt right. The magazine article came out in October. My face on the cover of Coastal Living Northwest next to the headline, "The Artist Who Learned to See Herself." The article told my story, edited, of course, with names changed to protect the innocent and the guilty alike. But the truth was there. The invisibility, the breaking point, the choice. People reached out. Women who had been the family helper, the reliable one, the one everyone forgot to thank. Their messages filled my inbox like a chorus of recognition. "I thought I was the only one. You gave me permission to leave. Thank you for showing me it is possible." My family reached out too eventually. Renee texted after the baby was born, a girl named Charlotte. She sent a photo, I sent congratulations and a gift card. Nothing more. My mother called once. I did not answer. She left a voicemail asking if I had gotten this out of my system yet. I deleted it, but my father surprised me. His email arrived on a Tuesday evening, 3 sentences long. "Paula, I saw the magazine. I'm proud of you. That one I kept. Today I'm sitting in my studio looking out at the Pacific. The Nikon camera I bought from that pawn shop still sits on my shelf, older now, battered, but still working. Next to it sits a newer model. One I purchased with money I earned from my art. Both cameras matter. One reminded me to see. The other proves that people saw me back. My second exhibition opens next month. Boundaries. 15 new photographs, each one exploring the edges of connection, where family ends and self begins, where obligation crosses into exploitation, where love becomes something else entirely. I think it might be my best work yet. Aunt Marion stops by every morning with coffee and commentary. Desmond checks in weekly with updates about collectors and opportunities. The Kiln House regulars have started requesting the photographer's table by the window, where I sometimes edit photos between customers. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, but I am seen, and that is enough. As for my family, we exist in a new configuration now. Christmas cards, birthday texts, the occasional update about the children. Civil, distant, healthier than before. I have not been back to Philadelphia. Maybe someday I will, but only as a visitor, never as the help. The other day, I was going through old photographs and found one I had taken years ago. A self-portrait, shot in the mirror of my Philadelphia apartment back when I was still invisible. The woman in that photo looked tired, defeated, like she was waiting for permission to exist. I deleted it. That woman is gone now. In her place is someone who takes up space, who creates beautiful things, who says no when she means no, and yes only when she chooses. Someone who finally let herself be seen. That is the real story. Not revenge, not triumph, just freedom. From a psychological perspective, Paula's story illustrates something called parentification. When a child, often the eldest, takes on adult responsibilities without recognition or reciprocity. She also occupied the scapegoat role, the family member whose needs are consistently deprioritized while a golden child, Renee, receives endless attention and resources. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Setting boundaries is not betrayal. It is not abandonment. It is the recognition that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that the people who truly love you will not ask you to. If you're in a situation like Paula's, remember your worth is not measured by how useful you are to others. It is inherent. It was always there. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not fight back. It is walk away. Build something of your own. Let your life speak louder than any argument ever could. You deserve that. We all do.